Hi everybody and welcome back to English Practice with Bildunginteraktiv. In this video clip we will tell you the couple of things that you want to remember when you use shall in English. Let's have a look at a couple of examples where we typically use shall. Everybody knows the song, almost everybody knows the song, "What shall we do with the drunken sailor?" So here we typically use shall, not only because the song wants you to, but also grammar-wise. What time shall we meet is a typical example for shall. What time shall we meet? And it's getting cold in here. Shall we close the window? Shall we close the window? Which is actually quite different from will you close the window, please? I will tell you this in a minute. Another typical example for shall is I shall probably go to Paris for my holiday. And we typically use shall in sentences or in questions like let's take the dog for a walk, shall we? So typical examples for shall: what shall we do with the drunken sailor? What time shall we meet? It's getting cold in here. Shall we close the window? I shall probably go to Paris for my holiday, and let's take the dog for a walk, shall we? And now let's have a look at this in a bit more detail and let's try to find some rules. 3 typical questions for shall. Shall I open the door for you? Shall we buy this house? Or shall we go out this evening? Use shall in questions when you're asking for someone's opinion or when you're making somebody an offer. Shall I open the door for you? I'm offering to open the door for you. Shall we buy this house? What's your opinion? I'm asking for your opinion. Is it a good idea to buy this house? Shall we buy this house? And shall we go out this evening? Again, what's your opinion? Is it a good idea to go out this evening? Shall we go out this evening? Asking for someone's opinion or making offers are typical places where you don't have to, where you can use shall. Shall I open the door for you? Shall we buy this house? Shall we go out this evening? Now, you want to be careful and not confuse shall and will. Look at these questions and sentences and the meaning actually is quite different. It's almost the opposite, I would say. Shall I open the door for you? We just had this. This is an offer. I'm offering to open the door for you. When you say, will you shut the door, please? The meaning here is, I want you to shut the door. Though this is not an offer, it's an order. Shall I open the door for you? That's the offer. Will you shut the door, please? And this is almost like an order. So you don't want to confuse will and shall in this context. Be careful with will here. Will you shut the door, please? I want you to shut the door. Let's continue. Now what shall we do with the drunken sailor? We've had this question already, and a typical question for shall is, shall I make you some lunch? Again, this is the offer. I'm offering to make you some lunch. Shall I make you some lunch? Please remember, use shall in questions. Now this is one thing. We only had questions so far in this video. And the most basic rule maybe is use shall with I or we only. Do not use shall with you, he, she, it, and they. Use shall with I or we only. What shall we do with the drunken sailor? We plus question and asking for someone's opinion. Shall I make you some lunch? It's a question, it's I. Shall I make you some lunch? It's an offer. So use shall in questions and use shall with I or we only. Good, let's continue. Now, these 2 sentences are not questions and it's still okay to use shall. You can use shall here. I shall probably go to Paris for my holiday. You can of course also say I will probably go to Paris. No problem with that, but you can use shall here. And you can say I shall not be home late. And there is actually a short form for shall not, and it's I shan't. I shan't be home late. I shall not be home late. Now you can use shall with I or we, of course, to talk about future plans. You can, that's the important word. You can also use will here. I will probably go to Paris. I shall not, I won't be home late. So you can use shall with the first person pronouns I and we when you're talking about future plans. I shall probably go to Paris for my holiday. I shall not be home late. And then we have one more. Let's take the dog for a walk, shall we? Let's start now, shall we? Use shall as the question tag after let's. Now this shall we, this comma shall we, and is a question tag, and you know this. You actually question tag I think is quite early in your English career. You learn how to use a question tag. Now this actually is it's like a grammatical rule. You have no choice here. You have to use shall. In combination with let's, shall becomes your question tag, and you want to remember this. Use shall as the question tag after let's. Let's take the dog for a walk, shall we? So let's start now, shall we? So when can you use shall? You can use shall when you're talking about future plans. You have to use shall with I and we only. Use shall in questions when you're asking for someone's opinion or when you want to make an offer. And please, you have to use shall as the question tag for let's. Let's take the dog for a walk, shall we? Let's start now, shall we? And this is actually all I have to say. Oh, there's one more thing. You really want to be careful with shall. Do not overuse it. It's not commonly used as to replace will, not. Use it wisely, use it rarely, use it to show your English teachers that you know how to use it, and this then actually gives you a better English, and it actually makes your style better, but don't overuse it. Please do not. That's it. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for watching. I see you around for the next video, and until then I say bye bye, have a good time.